Good morning, my friends. Grab yourself a cup of coffee. I will be right with you. Good morning, good morning. Drop me a note in the comments. Let me know you are here. Good morning, Ashley. How are you? Good morning, good morning, good morning. Happy, what day is it today? Happy hump day. Happy Wednesday. Welcome to Men Up with Mike. My name is Mike Cameron, and as always, I am your host. This is the show where we talk about all things leadership, personal development, and really just becoming the best version of who you are. And we do it all through the lens of what it means to be a dude, what it means to be a man. And today, for the first time in quite some time, I actually have a woman joining us as a guest, and I'm super pumped about that because we are going to talk about Down With, Man Up. And we're going to find out a little bit about what that means and why we're having that conversation. We are on the site, and we should be on the site. Are we not there? Hang on. There's Mitch. Mitch is on the site, and we're on the site. We're there. We should be there. I hope we're there. If we're not there, I'm trying something different. I've got a new guest. I love that you guys call me on my stuff when I'm screwing it up, but I see Mitch is there. How are you doing, Mitch? What is going on with you this morning? All right. Let's stop rambling. Let's dive right into our topic today. Today we are talking Down With, Man Up. Jamie says, yes, that statement caused my brother to be raised with the thoughts that he couldn't cry. Yeah, it's a problem. It's a real problem for sure. And today we're going to talk a little bit about why at least one woman also thinks this is a big problem. So welcome, Sheila Stauffer. Hey, good morning, Mitch. All right. Sorry, I'm watching comments all over the place, so I'll be jumping all over the place. Sheila is the executive director with Cornerstone Counseling. Did I get your title right?
That's right. Yeah.
Fabulous. So Sheila, tell us a little bit about who you are.
Okay, well, thank you. First of all, thank you for letting me have this opportunity to talk to you today. I am the executive director of Cornerstone Counseling, and we're a not-for-profit mental health service here in Edmonton. We've been in business for 42 years, and we offer a full range of mental health psychological services, all on a sliding scale to make them affordable to everybody. And I have been in this role. I'm a registered social worker, and I've been in this role for about 10 years. But the 10 years previous, I worked mostly with children. And so coming into this role and working in mental health was a little bit of a switch for me. And I began to investigate and do some work in mental health. And as I started to investigate, one of the things I learned that I hadn't learned previously was that men die by suicide at a rate that is 3 times that of women. And I found this really, really shocking. And I thought, wow. Why are we not talking about it? If I, as a social worker, don't even know this statistic, we're not talking about this enough. So that is where my interest in men's mental health really began.
And sorry, how long has that been?
I've been with Cornerstone for 10 years. So it would have been early, like 2011, 2012, probably when I became aware of the statistic.
Right. So talk to me about you've created this Down With, Man Up contest, or is it a campaign, a contest? What would you call it?
It's a contest with a awareness campaign, focus. That's the purpose of it. And I'll tell you how we started it. When I came across this statistic, I thought to myself, well, okay, people just don't know. So I will inform them. Very naively, I thought, I will inform them. They will care, and we will get some interest here. And so I started to talk about it. And I do sometimes go out and talk at breakfast meetings and business luncheons and things like that about our work here at Cornerstone. And what I found was people were not very receptive, that they were not at that time willing to talk about men's mental health. And on one occasion, I was talking to a facilitator who was organizing a breakfast, actually, and I said, and I'm going to just touch a little bit on men and suicide rates. And this organizer told me that, Sheila, you cannot talk about suicide at breakfast. It's a downer. And that is exactly what was said to me. And I was quite taken aback because, of course, it is a difficult topic, but I think that's all the more reason we should talk about it. And so I kind of retreated a little bit from my plan to share this at every opportunity. And I started to rethink things and how can we bring this into people's awareness and so people are talking about it in a way that is maybe a little less threatening or maybe more engaging. And so driving to work one day, I came up with the idea of let's make it a contest and let's invite people of all skill levels to just share something, an artistic piece about men's mental health. And I thought this would be a way that we could get people engaged. So that's really how Down with Man Up got its start.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's just, I don't know, I find it so frustrating. Good for you for coming up with an alternative. But this idea that, well, oh my goodness, suicide isn't a breakfast conversation. Well, at what point does it become a conversation? After it's happened to somebody that you love, or at what point? So I really applaud you for taking the initiative to find a way to make it meaningful, find a way that we can bring this a little more mainstream and have these conversations. So tell us a little bit about the contest itself. What kind of submissions are you looking for? What, if I want to enter, what should I be looking for? This whole concept of Down with Man Up, what does that mean to you?
Okay, well, Down with Man Up, and it's interesting that I'm on Man Up and I'm talking Down with Man Up, but anyway, that's the way it worked out. So it's Down with Man Up. So it's challenging that stereotype that boys can't cry, that boys don't have emotions. I am the mother, the proud mother of sons. And I can tell you that those sons had, when they were little, they had the same emotions that their sisters had. They struggled with things. And as they became adolescents, they continued to have emotions. They're different. You know, I don't want to say they're the same as girls, because men and boys can be different. That's fine. But they also, they still have hearts. They still have feelings, their emotions. They still have dreams for themselves and disappointments. So I'm the proud, as I said, proud mother of sons. So that's one of the things that kind of got me interested in this. And so it can be anything that challenges that stereotype. And it could be, there's a lot of different kinds of submissions. So it could be a poem, could be a story, could be an essay, maybe a story about something that happened to you. We had an Indigenous young man who did a rap last year that was so meaningful and so powerful. He did it about his feelings when a friend died by suicide. And it was beautiful and chilling. And that was a great piece. We've had people do art pieces like paintings. We've had a lot of paintings. We've had simple ones and complex ones. The rap would have been really complex. I had somebody submit a poster, and it was just a very plain poster. And it said, we will not stop violence against women and girls until we stop violence against men and boys. And that was just, for me, that's something I remember now. I think that was 3 years ago, one of the older submissions that we had. I still remember it. So what we really want to hear is your heart. You know, anybody who has a heart for this topic and they want to talk about it, you've got something to say it through a piece as simple or as complex as you want. And I would also say it's open to all age groups. So all levels of expertise and all age groups. We had 2-3 years ago now, we had a grade 5 teacher hear about this, and he made it part of his curriculum. And so he had all his little grade 5 kids do a piece. He talked about men's mental health, and they all submitted a piece. And I thought that was remarkable, because you think about it, those kids were 11 then. Now they're 14, they're adolescents. And earlier in their development, they learned it is okay and in fact important to talk about men's mental health and to be aware of it. And I thought that is really remarkable. So any talent, you can submit by, submissions are open now, and they're open till November 15th. And if you want more information, you can go to cornerstonecounseling.com, our website, and under the news and events tab, you'll find all the information you need to submit.
That's awesome. I'll make sure that we post a link in the comments. I'll post a link on my website as well to make sure that people can find where to submit and how to participate. And I love that. So if any teachers are watching and listening, you've got till November 15th to get your class involved. In fact, I know a few teachers, so I may reach out and make a suggestion for them, because I think that's a fabulous idea. I also love this concept of we won't stop violence against women until we stop violence against men and boys. And that addresses what I try and come after, and that's that root cause. You know, we can talk about building better restraining orders. We can talk about, you know, all these prevention things, but until we deal with sort of that root cause, and why are men violent in the first place, whether it's violent to themselves or violent to their partners, again, to me, that's such a much bigger solution. And I think that's one that maybe gets lost a little bit when we talk about mental health. I think oftentimes, and certainly for me, you know, I would have thought that, you know, mental health was something that happens to somebody else. It happens over there. It's not something that sort of impacts me. But the reality is, mental health impacts all of us. And this man up concept, you know, is problematic for all of us, whether we're, you know, the CEO of a multinational corporation, or a father, or, you know, everyone. Like, it just, the impact is huge. So I love the approach you're taking to this. And yes, your organization addresses mental health, but you know, it's so much more, or maybe mental health is so much more than just this, you know, something we deal with when we have a problem. It's this ongoing sort of maintenance piece.
Well, we all have mental health. It's either good mental health,
Yes.
or bad mental health. You know, you're right. It's all along the spectrum. And we see people all the time who, like, there's different ways people end up here for counseling. Sometimes they've had a really traumatic past and they're trying to heal from that. But sometimes life has been great. They've been doing really, really well. And all of a sudden there was a drastic change of circumstance that just put them in a place they'd never dreamed they'd be. So our mental health is just like our physical health. It can change. It can get better. It can get worse. It can become a problem, and then it can heal again. So mental health is fluid, and you're right, it's something we've always got to be thinking about, and we've got to be aware of. And if we find we're slipping, it's something that it's okay to address it and get help for. Just like if you had an infection, if you cut your foot and you got an infection, you wouldn't say, well, I don't want anybody to know because I don't want to think that I'm wimpy and, you know, I can't even fight off an infection. No, of course, you'd go and get antibiotics, boom, you'd be back up and for you running by, you know, in 2 weeks.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I love that. I mean, that sort of preventative piece, that addressing the issues before they come up. Again, I use the gym analogy, right? We know that if we want to get physically fit, we go to the gym. And we also know when we stop going to the gym, once we've gotten physically fit, guess what happens? We get out of shape again. So what would you suggest for, have you got any tips for guys trying to deal with sort of their mental health on an ongoing basis? What are some practices you've seen for men that work well?
Well, that is interesting. Interesting question.
Here.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you know what? There are men who do yoga. There are lots of men who do meditation. There's a lot of men who engage in physical fitness, and that is good for anybody, like gender, across the gender. All those things will work. And going out and connecting with nature, going for a walk. We have the most beautiful river valley, I think, in the world, and I spend a lot of time there. So any of that, but basically take time for yourself and find out what makes your heart happy. So for some people, it's going to be the gym. For some people, it's going to be that long walk with the dog. A lot of men really, really love pets. And that's interesting to me because I think that is also a little bit telling, because your pet doesn't tell your secrets and doesn't judge you. You know, but I know a lot of men who love their dogs and they love to go out and walk their dogs. So it might be a little bit different for everybody. Some women love long soaks in the tub. I get bored. I think, why am I here? But, that's it for some people, but it's different for everybody. But find that thing that makes your heart sing, that recharges you. Maybe it's playing with your grandchildren or your nephews if you don't have children of your own. So maybe it's playing with some kids because kids are so honest. It's whatever makes your heart sing.
Find that thing that makes your heart sing. There you go. There's your poem. There's your submission.
Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So give me some examples of some of the other submissions. Like I want to prompt some ideas for people that, this might be something they would be interested in doing, but think, I'm not a creative. This isn't in my wheelhouse.
Mm-hmm.
How can they get involved?
Okay. Well, we had one young man he had a very traumatic childhood, a really abusive childhood. And he just wrote stories about how he felt. And he'd made a couple of submissions, and they were almost like journal entries. So he wrote one about when his child was crying and he was feeling really frustrated, and he felt the edge of that evil come into his, kind of like, I feel upset. He felt that anger coming, that he ended up on the receiving end, and how he kind of dealt with that. And that was a powerful piece. And that was just his experience. It was almost, like I said, almost like a journal, almost like sort of stream of consciousness. So he submitted that, and that was a great piece. Lots of paintings. We get lots of paintings, and again, all skill levels. I remember one that I really liked, and it was after the circus, and it was a picture of, the strong man at the circus.
Yeah.
It was him sitting in his tent with his strongman outfit, his muscle outfit hanging up behind him, and he was just having a smoke and a glass of wine. And I thought that was really, we all put on our strongman outfit and we go out and perform. So I thought that was a really interesting one. We've had abstract paintings, that are just sharp edges, and what does that mean for somebody? It's so variant across the board, and it can be anything. We've never had a sculpture, so if somebody would like to sculpt something, that would be fun. And we are going to have a award ceremony. I should mention that. It's going to be the end of November. It's going to be virtual. We kind of were waiting. We were hoping we could have an in-person event like we have in past years, but it just doesn't look like that's going to happen this year. But there's prizes, and we're going to have an event, and we're going to showcase. We do showcase some of the art pieces, or some of the pieces, whether they're art or literature. And that's fun for us too, to get together, look at other pieces, and there are people who attend. So your family is welcome to attend the presentation, and they can look at other pieces, your friends, whoever you want to invite as a submitter, or even just other people. If you want to come and look at this, check it out for next year. By all means, we'll be posting information on the award ceremony too.
That's very cool. So I've got Linda says singing helps. So that's her thing. And Mitch says music as well. And absolutely, music's a big part. Certainly, I know for me, that's one of the things that I go to when I just need to unwind a little bit, to slow down. And sometimes when I need to speed up, I'm kind of I'm a headbanger from way back. So, sometimes it's Iron Maiden, Judas Priest. Sometimes it's Stanton Lanier with some nice, calming, soothing piano music. So yeah, music is absolutely a good piece. So I'm just reading some comments here. Anne says Sheila needs to be speaking on Men Up more often. I think it's important for men to hear from a woman that it's okay to have emotions. Yeah, absolutely, Anne. And that's exactly why Sheila is here, because yeah, we definitely sort of tend to skew towards the male perspective. Because I also think, I think it's important for men to hear from other guys that this stuff is okay. But the reality too, as Anne mentions, Sheila, we need the women in our lives to also say, this is okay. This is okay, guys. Because after all, for most men, we're trying to impress you guys. Mm-hmm. So we need to know that, again, the women in our life don't think that, it's less manly to get in touch with our feelings, to take good care of our mental health.
I think that is really true. And I'm so glad you brought that up, because that is so important. Because as women, we sometimes say, oh, I wish you were more intuitive. I wish you were more sensitive. And then when a man is sensitive, we're a little taken aback, like, ooh, okay, I don't know what to do with this. And sometimes, and I've heard this from men, I try to be open with her and she shuts me down because she can't handle it. And that is a tough thing. And I understand that because we've all been there where somebody's emotions are just a little real and we want to just fix it. We want to make it go away. We want to make it better. But we've got to get as women. So this might be mothers, partners, sisters, whoever our men are, who might come to us with some real emotions or some real difficulties and some vulnerability. We need to be able to take a deep breath and just sit in that moment with them and not flee and not get scared and not try to fix, but we need to be able to just sit and be with that person. And that is when a man can feel like that he can be himself, right?
Yeah.
That's when he's got that kind of intimacy, that kind of connection, that kind of trust. That's when he can be himself and probably be his best self.
Yes.
You were talking about Brene Brown yesterday, and I'm a big fan of hers too. And she said when she started to get into dealing with men and vulnerability, a man said to her that my wife and daughters would rather see me die on my white horse than fall off. Yeah. And I thought that is so true. And we as women have to be really careful that we don't expect so much from our partners or our fathers, our brothers. We don't expect so much from the men in our lives that we have put them in an unreal place that they cannot possibly, they can't possibly do it. Nobody can be perfect. Nobody can be strong all the time. It's just not possible.
Yeah, well, and it is hard, and it's so important for women to be able to allow the men in their lives that permission to feel. And it can be uncomfortable, it can be awkward because we don't quite know what to do with it. I had one man I worked with who's quite often, you know, as you noted, I have a lot of women that tune in and watch this show, and often it's the female partner that will send their men to listen to me or to talk to me or have that conversation with me. But I've had at least one man in particular that I can think of who his partner sent them, you need to talk to Mike. We had some great conversations. We went through a bit of a coaching program. And not that far in, she started to get really uncomfortable and started to almost mock him for some of the things that we were doing. And I realized that I think, you know, for her, it was just this like, oh, this is what I wanted. But now that it's happening, it's like, this is a little scary because I'm not quite sure how to deal with it. Maybe he won't need me as much anymore. You know, I think there was a little bit of that going on. So she started to sabotage a little bit. And I don't think it was with malicious intent, but she just didn't know what to do with it. So I love that you're having this conversation and talking about, yeah, we absolutely need the women in our lives to be able to support us when we do have to hop down off that white horse and say, I need a Band-Aid. I got a boo-boo.
Yeah. And, you know, when you think about a man who's coming forward, like maybe it's somebody who's feeling suicidal, maybe somebody who's so depressed, because we've all heard stories of he seemed fine. I don't know what happened. And I didn't see it coming. And he died by suicide. You know, we've all heard those stories. But that is a man who didn't feel like he could tell anybody, who felt like he had to keep up the image until the weight was just too great. And we've had men at the center here who have, you know, been suicidal and have been able to tell their therapist. And that's kind of the first gatekeeper, right? You tell your therapist and your therapist says, oh yeah, you know, I'm here for you. I accept what you're saying. I still hold you in absolute positive regard. And that helps them and gives them the courage to take the next step. And most of the time, you know, when they then take the next step to tell a family member, a partner, a very good friend, you know, those people will also encourage them. And that can be such a big turning point for somebody to realize that, I don't have to be everything to everybody all the time. And I can show this bit of weakness and I can heal and people aren't going to reject me. I don't need to make myself disappear. I don't need to do the ultimate to make this pain go away, you know, that I can in fact heal.
So I want to back you up because you said I can show this weakness, but I think I can show this vulnerability, not necessarily weakness. So I'm going to challenge you on the language a little bit.
Okay. Thank you for that.
So what can individuals do? This is something that I wrestled with. I paused because I obviously have to be cautious with confidence. but supporting a loved one that's going through a really dark time can be incredibly difficult because, you know, they may not want help. They may not, maybe they don't think they need help. Or maybe they're just so despondent that they don't have any will to sort of move forward. And I know for me, there was a time in my life where I had to deal with that with someone very close to me. And it was so hard because, you know, as you talked about, like, you can't fix anything. There's nothing to fix. And it's so hard to support because if they're not willing to open up, if they're not willing to talk. So what are some things that we can do as men or women in that supportive role when we see somebody that's kind of going down that dark path? Do you have any thoughts, any suggestions?
Well, I think be there, offer support. That is the first thing, is just to be there. And if they tell you that they're feeling that way, if they tell you, you know, I just don't feel like life is worth it, I just don't feel worthy, you know, to be able to listen. And again, just be able to hold yourself in that moment without jumping to conclusions, without telling them to, you know, suck it up, without telling them you'll get past this. It's, why don't you just, you know, sometimes we like to give people short answers, like, go take a bath, you'll be fine.
Right.
And it makes us feel better, but it doesn't make them feel better. It makes us feel better because then we stop worrying and we don't have to wonder, we don't have to feel inadequate in that moment, because you do feel very inadequate in that moment. Like, I don't know what to tell this person. So being able to support them, and then being able to know when you absolutely need to get help. And so 211 here in Edmonton is a wonderful resource. So you can call them and find out about resources to help your whoever you're dealing with. It might be that they really need to go to the hospital. It might need that they need to go to Access 24/7. Great resource here in the city. So you might have to do that. But if they're not at that point, if they're just somebody who needs support, it can be draining. It can really be draining. So draw others in. Who else knows this person that you can, like, you don't want to go and tell everybody they know, oh, Joe's depressed, let's all go over. But, you know, with permission and with encouragement, draw others in to help you, because it can be a lot to support somebody who might be severely depressed, severely anxious, going through a really tough time.
Yeah, I mean, I know in my particular circumstance, it was devastating. And the answers I got when I did, because I did, you know, I phoned HealthLink and those things. And the answers I always got, actually, to be frank, frustrated me, because it was get them to a doctor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, that's easier said than done, unless you're going to physically grab somebody and put them in the car and drive them to the doctor's office, then march them in. You know, if they're at a point where they're not willing to go, it can be so hard. So I love your point about enlisting others to help show support and finding that, you know, those loved ones around. And as you said, with permission, that can help sort of carry some of that burden, because it can be a very heavy load, for sure.
And it might take a while too for somebody to decide to get help if they really, really need it. It can take a while of, you know, gently saying, you know, I think we need some help. Let's get some supports in. And building a little bit of hope, because anytime you're dealing with somebody like that, you want to build hope in them. You want to ignite a little bit of a thought. It could be different. You know, this is fixable. You could be different. We can get past this, you know, and make it the we, like, I'm here for you. We're going to get through this together. I'm with you. I'm right beside you.
Yeah, I love that. When you said that we can get help, that really landed with me, because I think that is important, because I know certainly in my circumstance, I think there was a lot of feeling of blame. So I certainly couldn't have said, you need to get help, or, you know, we can get you help. And I think in hindsight, that was probably one of the things I didn't do so well. So changing that language a little bit to, we can get help. There's help for us. We can do this, and making this a together thing. I think that's a fantastic point.
Yeah. Yeah.
Any last words for our crew here?
Well, no, I just would love to have more people join us for Down with Man Up. And you know what? If somebody's listening today and you think, oh, I know somebody who's really talented, please share our information. Or maybe somebody who's not talented but just has something to say, right? Because that's it. We want all skill levels. We want to know what you want to say. We want to hear what you want to say. That's, I guess, what we're trying to do here.
Awesome. Okay, and just before I let you go, tell me again who your services are for, who's sort of your demographic. If somebody's listening and thinking, yeah, but I don't know,
You
who
know,
do you serve?
the whole community completely without discrimination. So we do have full fee clients. So we have people with a comfortable income or benefits that come and use our psychological services. And that's fine, because any of the money we might make off those clients, we funnel that right back into our low fee program. And so that's a big portion of how we finance our low fee program. We have people on AISH, we have people who are unemployed, people who maybe are underemployed, so that they're our lowest fee clients. So they can see one of our graduate level interns for $20 a session, and that's a master's level student who's supervised by a psychologist, so they can go and see that range. So it's all along the spectrum, and depression, anxiety, stress management, trauma, relationship issues. If it's common to humanity, we've probably seen it here.
Wonderful. Okay, so yeah, anybody with any kind of challenges is something you can support, and as you said, you've got programs. So if money or a cost is a barrier, that doesn't need to be a barrier for your services. And I love that, because I think so often, and I know certainly, like I said, in my particular case, cost was a barrier, but it wasn't a barrier, it was an excuse.
Mm-hmm.
It was there was a lot of conversation around, but it's so expensive. And again, that was sort of thrown up as a barrier for seeking help, which was obviously part of a bigger problem. But I love that. Yeah, as Linda says, thanks for not excluding those on thanks for including those on low income. So yeah, I think that's absolutely critical. So I really, really appreciate what you do, Sheila, and I'm so glad you could join us today. And I'll make sure we drop links in all the social platforms. We're on LinkedIn, we're on YouTube, we're on Facebook, we're on MikeCameron.ca. If you guys haven't yet, pop on over to MikeCameron.ca, sign up for the community there. We're having these kinds of conversations regularly. I'm putting up as much resources as I possibly can, and sharing resources in other places. So Sheila, once again, thank you so much for joining us today.